That clipboard hitting the concrete floor still echoes in my head. Not dropped, not placed down, just released like Richard was letting go of dead weight. The safety inspection forms scattered across the factory floor while he stood there with that smirk, telling me how things were going to change around here. I'm Dale Carter, 49 years old, and I walked into that morning thinking we were discussing the quarterly safety review. Instead, I got handed a reality check that changed everything. The document was simple enough. Effective immediately, Dale Carter transitions to operations consultant under efficiency director Alex Martinez. That's corporate speak for you're now reporting to a 28-year-old MBA who thinks OSHA regulations are suggestions. But let me back up and tell you how I got here. I'd been plant operations manager at Hoffman Steel Solutions for 15 years. Started when Jordan was 9 years old and Rebecca was pregnant with Haley. Back then, this place was a disaster waiting to happen. Safety protocols existed on paper, but nowhere else. Workers cutting corners because nobody enforced procedures. We had 3 near-miss accidents in my first month alone. I built that safety program from nothing, trained every supervisor, implemented lockout procedures that actually worked. We went from insurance nightmares to 5 years without a lost time injury. Every protocol, every inspection checklist, every emergency response procedure, I'd written it after seeing what happens when you skip steps. Richard Hoffman, the owner's son who became CEO 2 years ago, had been taking credit for our safety record ever since. The guy inherited a profitable company and somehow convinced himself he'd invented workplace safety. Every board meeting, every client visit, he'd stand up there talking about our operational excellence like he'd personally prevented every accident. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Coffee at 6 where, quick walk through the production floor, office by 6:45. Same routine I'd followed since my Army days. Jordan was finishing his associate degree at community college, working part-time at the auto shop. Haley was in her junior year at State, studying nursing, making us proud. Good kids, both of them. The mortgage had 6 years left at $2,100 a month. Everything was steady, predictable, should have been my first warning. Around 9:30, Helen Rodriguez knocked on my office door. Helen never interrupted unless something was serious. Her voice was tight when she said Richard needed to see me on the floor immediately, like she already knew something I didn't. I grabbed my hard hat and clipboard, thinking maybe it was about the new stamping press installation or the OSHA audit scheduled for next month. The production floor always felt different when the machines were running. That steady rhythm of hydraulic presses, the hiss of pneumatic systems, the background hum that tells you everything's operating within parameters. I'd walked this floor thousands of times for inspections, training sessions, incident investigations, never once thinking it might be for something like this. Richard was standing by the main press line with some kid I'd never seen before. Expensive suit, clean hands, the kind of guy who looked uncomfortable around actual machinery. Richard was shouting over the equipment noise, gesturing at production charts like he was explaining rocket science instead of basic manufacturing. When he saw me approaching, Richard held up his hand for the machines to cycle down. The sudden quiet felt wrong, like when the ventilation system shuts off and you notice the air isn't moving anymore. "Dale, come over here. Want you to meet Alex Martinez." He pointed at the kid with his clipboard. Alex is our new efficiency director. MBA from Stanford, specializes in lean manufacturing implementation. Efficiency director, we'd never had an efficiency director before. And the way Richard said it with that emphasis told me exactly where this was heading. Before I could respond, Richard pulled out a manila folder from his briefcase. No ceremony, no explanation, just handed it over like he was passing along maintenance reports. "Strategic restructuring," he said, finally making eye contact. "The board's been discussing operational optimization. We need fresh perspectives on manufacturing efficiency." I opened the folder, expecting new safety protocols or equipment upgrades. Instead, I saw my title crossed out in red ink and replaced with operations consultant. My salary stayed the same, but every line of authority had been stripped away. Everything I'd built over 15 years was being handed to someone who probably couldn't tell the difference between a torque wrench and a pipe cutter. "You want me to train my replacement?" I asked, keeping my voice level over the machine noise. Richard adjusted his safety glasses with that smirk he'd perfected in business school. "I want you to mentor the future, Dale. Alex understands where manufacturing is heading. Data analytics, process optimization, waste elimination protocols. The board thinks we need someone who speaks that language." The board. Richard's way of saying he'd made the decision and didn't want to own it directly. Alex was standing there nodding like he understood what we were discussing, but I could tell from his expression he was still figuring out which machines did what. Alex is waiting in conference room 2. Richard continued. Figured you could start the knowledge transfer immediately. Knowledge transfer. 15 years of safety protocols, crisis management, worker relationships, equipment maintenance schedules. All of it reduced to knowledge transfer like I was handing over a software manual. Something shifted inside me right then, listening to those hydraulic systems cycling back up, feeling the vibration through the concrete floor. But I kept my expression neutral. When does this take effect? Today. I know it's a big change, but I'm confident you'll help Alex succeed. I closed the folder and handed it back. That was the moment I realized Richard hadn't demoted me because I'd failed. He did it because he assumed I'd accept it, quietly, professionally, without resistance. I'll head over to conference room 2, I said, adjusting my hard hat. Walking toward that meeting felt like a death march. The production floor seemed louder than usual, and I could feel eyes on me from every workstation I passed. Word travels fast in manufacturing environments, especially bad news. People were pretending to focus on their tasks while watching me walk toward what everyone probably figured was just another meeting. Conference room 2 was the small one with flickering fluorescents and a table that had seen better days. Not exactly where you'd expect to hand over the keys to a multi-million-dollar operation. But I guess that was the point. This wasn't a celebration or transition ceremony. This was a quiet transfer of responsibility from someone who'd earned it to someone who'd been appointed. Alex was already there when I walked in, scrolling through his phone with one hand and taking notes with the other. When he saw me, he stood up and extended his hand like we were meeting at a business conference. Dale, great to finally meet you. Richard told me about the mentoring arrangement. I'm really excited to learn from someone with your experience. Experience. My 15-year track record reduced to experience. I sat down across from him and pulled out my inspection reports. What exactly did Richard tell you about this arrangement? His face lit up like he'd won the lottery. That you're going to show me how operations work around here. All the systems and processes and best practices. I'm really looking forward to applying some modern efficiency principles to what you've built. Modern efficiency principles, applied to systems that hadn't had a lost time accident in 5 years. Where do you want to start? I don't know. Maybe we could start with the biggest inefficiencies, the processes that are costing us the most in terms of productivity. Productivity. Not safety, not worker welfare, not equipment longevity. Productivity. Alex, let me show you our safety protocols first. Everything else builds from there. For the next 2 hours, I walked him through the basics. Our lockout, dag-out procedures that kept workers from losing fingers. The inspection schedules that prevented equipment failures, the incident reporting system that caught problems before they became disasters. Alex took notes for about 20 minutes. Then he started checking his phone. Then he started asking questions that made my stomach clench. Why do we need so many inspection checkpoints? Couldn't we reduce these by maybe 40% and still maintain safety standards? What if we implemented predictive maintenance using sensors instead of scheduled inspections? Have you considered gamifying the safety protocols to increase worker engagement? Gamifying safety protocols. He wanted to turn lockout procedures into some kind of points system. 30 minutes in, I realized he wasn't writing down safety procedures. He was sketching what looked like flowcharts with efficiency percentages and cost reduction targets. This is a lot of redundancy, he said after I'd explained our pre-shift safety meetings for the 3rd time. Maybe we could streamline these into a digital checklist that supervisors could complete in half the time. Digital checklist. For procedures that required visual inspection of equipment, verification of safety systems, and face-to-face communication with operators who needed to understand exactly what could kill them if they made mistakes. A digital checklist, Alex, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. These aren't inefficiencies. Each checkpoint prevents accidents. When that stamping press malfunctions, you need trained eyes and experienced judgment to catch problems before someone gets hurt. You can't automate safety. He nodded enthusiastically. Right? But what if we used AI-powered sensors to monitor equipment performance and predict maintenance needs? Machine learning could probably identify patterns we're missing. Machine learning. This kid was going to be responsible for the safety of 180 workers, and he thought machine learning could replace human judgment in life or death situations. At one point, he looked up from his efficiency calculations and asked the question that cut deeper than anything Richard had said. Dale, why didn't Richard just promote you to efficiency director? You obviously know this stuff better than anyone. Simple, innocent question. And the answer was more complicated than a 28-year-old would understand. Because Richard didn't value quiet competence. He valued people who reflected his vision of the future back at him. Alex wasn't qualified, but he was young, educated, and spoke the buzzword language that Richard thought meant innovation. He was moldable in a way I'd never been. I'd spent 15 years telling Richard when his cost-cutting ideas would create safety hazards, when his production pressures were unrealistic, when his equipment purchases were wrong for our applications. I'd saved lives by saying no to dangerous shortcuts, but saying no doesn't get you promoted. It gets you replaced by someone who says yes to everything. We finished the session around noon. Alex stood up, gathered his notes, and said, "Thanks, Dale. I know this transition is probably strange for you, but I think we can really optimize operations here. You've built something solid, and now we can make it efficient." Efficient. 5 years without accidents reduced to something that could be made efficient. "When do you want to continue?" I asked. "Tomorrow, same time." "Oh, and could you put together a summary document with all the critical protocols? That would help me prioritize which processes to streamline first." A summary document. He wanted me to compress 15 years of safety knowledge into bullet points, so he could decide which protections to eliminate. That evening, driving home with both hands gripping the steering wheel, I kept thinking about Alex's question. Why didn't Richard just promote me to efficiency director? Because efficiency wasn't really about improving operations. It was about Richard proving he was forward-thinking, progressive, in touch with modern business practices. And you can't prove you're revolutionary by promoting the guy who's been quietly keeping people safe for 15 years. My phone buzzed at a red light. Text message from Charles Bennett. A number I recognized from the Regional Manufacturing Association. Charles had retired as plant manager from Thompson Industries 3 years ago, built his own consulting firm helping mid-size manufacturers improve operations. "Dale, heard through industry contacts about your situation at Hoffman. Coffee this week, I've got a proposition that might interest you." I stared at that message until someone honked behind me. Charles Bennett wanted to meet a guy who'd actually built something real, who understood what manufacturing operations meant. For the first time in 48 hours, I felt something other than resignation. The next 2 weeks were painful to watch. Alex started implementing changes immediately, before he understood why the current systems existed. He eliminated 3 daily safety checkpoints because they were redundant. He reduced pre-shift meetings from 15 minutes to 5 minutes to increase productivity. He created a digital reporting system that was supposed to streamline incident documentation but actually made it harder to track patterns and identify problems before they became serious. I met Charles at Murphy's Diner on Thursday morning. One of those places that's been around forever, where you can actually have a conversation without competing with espresso machines and laptop computers. Charles was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with 2 regular coffees and no briefcase in sight. That told me something right there. "Dale, good to see you again," he said, standing to shake my hand. Firm grip, direct eye contact. None of that corporate performance you get from guys like Richard. We sat down and Charles got straight to the point. "I've been watching your safety record at Hoffman for years. 5 years without lost time injuries. Best OSHA compliance ratings in the region. Worker satisfaction scores that make other plants jealous. That doesn't happen by accident. I'd never heard anyone quantify my work like that." Richard took credit for the numbers without understanding how they were achieved. To him, good safety records just appeared because he was CEO. Charles pulled out a single sheet of paper from his jacket pocket. Not a PowerPoint presentation, not a formal proposal, just 1 page with handwritten notes. "I'm expanding my consulting practice. Need a partner, not an employee. Someone who understands safety and operations from the ground up. Someone who can work with plant managers who actually want to improve instead of just cutting costs. Partner, not consultant, not advisor, not senior anything. Partner. What's the timeline?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. "Whenever you're ready. I know you've got college payments, mortgage, real responsibilities. I'm not asking you to jump without looking. But Dale, understand this. What Richard's doing isn't about efficiency or modern practices. It's about a weak manager feeling threatened by someone who actually knows how to run things safely." He was right, of course. I'd known it for months but hadn't wanted to admit it. Richard wasn't interested in improving operations. He was interested in surrounding himself with people who made him feel smart. "There's something else," Charles continued. Gloria Washington at Premier Automotive called me last week. She's concerned about quality control since you've been sidelined. 2 other suppliers have reached out asking about alternatives. They don't know you're my first choice for partner, but they remember who actually solved their problems. That hit harder than I expected. These were relationships I'd built over years, clients who trusted me personally, and they were already looking for alternatives because they could see the quality declining. I drove home that afternoon thinking about everything Charles had said. Haley's tuition was due in 8 weeks, $16,000 for the semester. Jordan would be transferring to a 4-year school soon, and even with community college credits, we were looking at serious money. The mortgage payment was $2,100 every month for 6 more years. I couldn't just walk away from steady income no matter how appealing Charles's offer sounded, but I also couldn't keep watching Alex eliminate safety protocols that kept people alive. The next 3 weeks at Hoffman were painful. Without me managing daily safety oversight, problems started appearing fast. A lockout procedure Alex had streamlined resulted in a maintenance worker nearly getting crushed by hydraulic equipment. A pre-shift inspection he'd eliminated missed a bearing failure that shut down production for 8 hours. An incident report he'd simplified provided no useful information when OSHA called asking questions. None of it was officially my fault, but Richard kept calling me into his office asking me to fix things quietly. I was still responsible for cleaning up the disasters, but Alex got credit for any improvements that worked. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. Richard scheduled an emergency meeting with our biggest client for Monday and demanded I prepare a comprehensive safety compliance report in 3 hours. A full analysis of incident rates, training records, equipment inspection logs, and regulatory compliance. The kind of report that usually took me 2 days to compile properly. Just pull together the highlights, he said, standing in my doorway like he was doing me a favor. Make it look good for Premier Automotive. Make it look good. 15 years of safety protocols reduced to making Richard look competent for people who actually understood manufacturing. I looked at him standing there checking his watch impatiently, and something inside me finally snapped. This report will take 2 days to do properly. Dale, I need it in 3 hours. Premier expects detailed documentation, then maybe Alex should prepare it. He's the efficiency director now. Richard's expression tightened. Alex doesn't have your experience with the historical data. No, he doesn't. But if he's taking over operations, he needs to learn how to handle client presentations. Look, I'm not asking. I'm telling you to have this ready by 4:00. I stood up slowly. Richard, I've spent 15 years making you look competent to people who matter. I've prevented accidents, maintained relationships, and covered for every shortcut you've tried to implement. But I'm done being your safety net while you pretend someone else can do my job. He stared at me, probably shocked that I'd finally said what we both knew was true. You want this report? Have Alex prepare it. He's the future of operations, right? Let him prove it. That night, I called Charles. I'm ready. Good. When can you start? I need to give 2 weeks' notice. Charles laughed. Dale, you don't owe them anything after what they've done, but if that's how you want to handle it, I respect that. I wrote my resignation letter at the kitchen table while Haley studied for her organic chemistry exam. Short, professional, clean. No accusations, no emotional outbursts, just notice that I was leaving to pursue other opportunities. When I finished, I read it twice, not to edit it, but because part of me couldn't believe I'd actually written it. Then I printed it, signed it, and set it on my nightstand. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without worrying about what crisis would be waiting for me in the morning. Monday morning, I walked into Hoffman Steel Solutions knowing it would be one of my last times. Same routine, coffee at 6, went production floor by 6:45, but everything felt different. The resignation letter was folded in my shirt pocket, and for the first time in months, I wasn't dreading the day ahead. Richard's office door was already open when I got there. He was on the phone, pacing behind his desk and gesturing like he was delivering a presentation instead of explaining to some supplier why their delivery was 2 weeks late. When he saw me, he held up one finger and mouthed 1 second like I was interrupting something important. That tiny gesture crystallized everything wrong with our relationship. I wasn't waiting anymore. When he finally hung up, he pointed at the chair across from his desk. Dale, about that compliance report. I need it ready by 10:04 for the Premier meeting. I didn't sit down. Instead, I stepped forward and placed the folded resignation letter in the center of his desk. It took him a moment to process what he was looking at. The confident expression faded, and I watched him realize this wasn't another report or maintenance request. "What is this?" he asked, unfolding the paper. "My resignation, effective 2 weeks from today." He read it twice like the words might change if he looked harder. "You're quitting? Yes. Dale, you're being dramatic. This makes you look unprofessional, like you're running away because things didn't go your way." I met his eyes without flinching. "I'm not running, Richard. I'm leaving." "There's a difference." He leaned back in his chair, trying to regain control. "You know you'll never find another position like this at your age. Not with comparable benefits, not with the kind of stability we offer here. At my age, finally out in the open." "You're right. I probably won't find another position like this one." His smirk started to return like he'd won the argument. "I'm going to find something better." The smirk disappeared. "I'll finish my 2 weeks professionally. After that, I'm done." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Hoffman Steel Solutions begin to unravel. Without me managing daily safety oversight, small problems became big problems. Alex tried to implement some kind of digital efficiency system that crashed every other day. A major client called threatening to cancel their contract because nobody could answer basic questions about quality control procedures. The OSHA compliance issues hit $25,000 in penalties by the end of my second week. My last day came with no farewell lunch, no recognition, no awkward goodbye speech. Just quiet handshakes from the workers who understood what was really happening. Vincent Shaw, the union rep, pulled me aside. "Place won't be the same without you, Dale." "Maybe that's not entirely bad," I replied. Monday morning, I walked into Bennett Manufacturing Consulting. Real office space, professional atmosphere, people who looked up when I entered instead of pretending I was invisible. Charles introduced me to the team as his partner, not his new hire. "Dale's going to handle all safety and operations consulting," he told them. "He's got more hands-on manufacturing experience than most consultants have in their entire careers." The first client call came Tuesday afternoon. Gloria Washington from Premier Automotive, an account I'd managed for 6 years at Hoffman. "Dale, thank goodness," she said when she heard my voice. "I've been trying to get straight answers from your old team for 2 weeks. Nothing but confusion and delays." I walked her through a solution step by step, just like I had dozens of times before. By the end of the call, she'd signed a 1-year consulting contract with Bennett Manufacturing. "Finally, someone who actually knows what they're talking about," she said before hanging up. That's how it started. Word traveled fast in our industry. Other clients I'd worked with for years started calling, asking about the change. Suppliers reached out wanting to know about new opportunities. Not because I was actively recruiting, but because they knew I'd give them reliable answers and safe solutions. Within 6 months, Bennett Manufacturing Consulting had doubled in size. We hired 8 new consultants, opened a second office location, and landed contracts with 12 mid-size manufacturers. My name went on the letterhead next to Charles's. Equal partners, just like he'd promised. The collapse of Hoffman Steel Solutions happened faster than anyone expected. Vincent Shaw called me one afternoon, his voice strained. "Dale, it's a complete disaster over here. Alex quit last week after the efficiency system caused another shutdown. Helen gave notice this morning. 2 more clients canceled their contracts. Richard's been locked in his office for 3 days, and nobody knows what's happening." I didn't feel triumphant hearing that. I felt confirmed. The work I'd been doing for 15 years was real. The problems I'd been preventing were genuine. I hadn't been overstating my value or being dramatic about safety concerns. 8 months after I left, Hoffman Steel Solutions filed for bankruptcy protection. Richard tried calling me once, something about consulting opportunities and helping them restructure, but I didn't return the call. That chapter was closed. Meanwhile, Bennett Manufacturing kept growing. We opened a 3rd location, hired 8 consultants total, and this year we're on track to hit $2.5 million in annual revenue. Charles and I are already planning the next expansion phase. At the Regional Manufacturing Conference last month, I saw Richard across the room. He looked smaller, older, like he'd aged 3 years and 18 months. Our eyes met for a moment, and he started walking toward me, then stopped halfway and turned around. Maybe he realized he had nothing to say that would matter. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't the demotion or the disrespect. It was staying somewhere that refused to see the value of experience. I spent 15 years telling myself loyalty mattered more than recognition. That patience would eventually be rewarded. But here's what I learned. You can't save a place that's determined to ignore the foundation holding it up. Experience isn't outdated, no matter what younger managers think, and sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding somewhere else. Charles tells people I saved his consulting firm, but that's not true. Charles gave me a place to do what I'd always done, just with recognition instead of exploitation. The best part? Haley graduated debt-free last spring with her nursing degree. Jordan's transferring to state in the fall with most of his credits covered. The mortgage has 3 years left, and I wake up every morning knowing my work matters to people who understand its value. I'm 49 years old, partner in a successful consulting firm, and finally working with people who appreciate what 15 years of manufacturing experience actually means. Sometimes walking away with dignity teaches more than any confrontation ever could. Your reputation follows you long after your title is forgotten. Invest in relationships and competence, not corporate politics. The right opportunity doesn't wait for perfect timing. It waits for someone ready to recognize their own worth. Sometimes the biggest risk isn't leaving a bad situation, but staying in it long enough to forget what you're truly capable of.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. But now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. I'm freezing, I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile, every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here, maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.